It's on my anniversary.
No, I mean, that's fair.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's start with sound check. Sound check.
Testing.
Sound check.
1, 2, 3.
Hi, I am here live from CanHammer TV. It's Tuesday night.
I'm glad someone has energy tonight.
All right, we're
So much.
replacing.
Are you kidding me? I'm ready to go.
We're replacing you, Francois. That was too good.
All right, fine.
I do this too often.
All right,
I
we're
do it like
replacing.
3 or 4 times a
You
week.
feel like
now.
you're on every
replacing you,
podcast I listen
Francois.
to.
That was
So do I. So do I.
All right, fine.
All right. Anybody out there give us sound check? I think it sounds okay.
Hope so.
Can you hear me? Am I here? Tell me, chat. Tell me if you hear me.
There are apparently 4 people listening, so they should be able to.
Am I here? Tell me, chat. I can speak if you hear closer, deeper.
There are apparently
louder.
4 people listening, so they should be able to.
Am I here? Tell me, chat.
4 people listening. That's like 3
Tell
more
me
than
if you
you
hear closer, deeper.
There are apparently
Louder.
4
I might be
people
one of them.
listening, so they should be able to.
He might be one of them.
I have a lot of tabs open.
Okay, everyone sounds good apparently, so we're
Right.
good to go.
Perfect.
All right, let's take a pause. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the CanHammer podcast, episode 222. I am your host, Francois, and joining me, as usual, my wonderful co-host, Darren, is here with us. Darren, how's it going?
Wonderful, eh? Oh, I feel so flattered now.
You are a wonderful man, Darren. I don't know why you're surprised by that.
Well, yeah, nobody tells me that every day, though.
Oh, I made him blush now. You can't see if you're listening on the podcast apps, but I made Darren blush. All right, joining us, very special guests tonight. We have Dustin from the Stutter Scrub podcast. Dustin, thank you for joining us, and how are you doing tonight?
My pleasure for joining you. Thanks for having me on. And I am doing fantastic. And also, I think wonderful is actually kind of a cop-out compliment, so I wouldn't feel too embarrassed or good about it, Darren. It's kind of like a random, you're a good dude. I like you.
All right, well, for the 3 people maybe out there who haven't listened to Dustin talk on a podcast before, because Dustin is on everything, or who don't listen to his podcast, the Stutter Scrub podcast, which I enjoy personally very much, so if you're not listening to it, you should. Dustin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a 40K advocate. I love the game. I've been playing for a very long time. I am on, like Francois said, I'm on a lot of different podcasts. I have my own, the Stutter Scrub podcast, which started off as myself and my co-host Jesse's journey to join the Canadian WTC team, like the World's team, which I have since been a part of now for several years. So now it's just kind of turned into a podcast of our 40K competitive thoughts, our tournaments, the meta, things that we think about, and rants that Jesse gets angry about, which is very often.
I mean, those are the best part, though.
Those are the best part too. So we also have like games that we stream every Wednesday night. I'm also part of the Thursday show on the Frontline Gaming Network every Thursday night with the wonderful Adam Camilleri and wonderful Paul Murphy. So I have a busy 40K weeks. I don't even know how I find time to play.
How do you find the time to be on all that stuff, do all that stuff? I thought I was a busy 40K person.
Yeah, and in between that, I'm playing games too, right? I play Thursday nights before the Thursday show. I play on Wednesday nights. I play over the weekend. I usually play on Mondays, and I talk about it almost every night. My wife loves 40K. Let me tell you, man, it is her favorite thing in the entire world.
I'm not sure I believe that, but that's okay. She's a very understanding woman, clearly.
Yes, she is.
All right, well, thank you, Dustin's wife, for letting him do all that stuff for our entertainment.
I think she might beat your wife, Francois, for most tolerant 40K wife.
Yeah, I think we might have found one that's even more tolerant than mine.
I'll make sure she knows that.
She won.
All right,
She
well,
won.
Dustin is joining us tonight to help us kind of recap and brain dump a little bit the CanHammer team tournament that we were all at this weekend. The CanHammer team tournament, for anyone not familiar with it, I don't know why you wouldn't be if you're listening to our podcast, because we talk about it all the time, but It is. I mean, I think it's fair to say one of the flagship Warhammer events in Canada. 5-man team tournament, WTC rules, 5 rounds over 2 days in the wonderful EY Center here in Ottawa, and 24 teams this year. Darren, do I have that right?
Yeah.
24 teams. So that's quick math: 120 people plus some coaches, so 130 people. Really, we're all gathered in the EY Center, which in the age of COVID is kind of a very significant moment. I personally felt like coming home to the EY Center after 2 years of no Capital City Bloodbath and no CanHammer team tournament. It felt real good to be there, and I think this deserves kind of a recap for the listeners out there. Now, we won't be going into detail about the games and doing a round by round kind of recap of what happened, but I wanted to make sure that we kind of shared the experience with the listeners and talked about how wonderful a weekend we had. Um, to start, maybe we should talk about team tournaments, specifically CanHammer team tournaments, but how different they are. We've talked on this podcast, and Dustin has talked on his podcast about how we really love team events, and I'm going to speak for Dustin now, but I think he agrees with me. I think it's the superior way of playing 40K. Like, I prefer team events to singles events. Dustin, do you agree with me?
The pinnacle of 40K is team
Yeah.
events.
So
Especially anybody that's playing
Apex.
40K right now and is the apex. Yes, the apex. That's even better. So anybody that's playing 40K right now is kind of like upset with the meta. It's like, oh, I can't like do well in the events. They keep running up against these power lists that I just can't deal with. Team events, don't care. Team event meta is a different meta on its own, and those kind of lists, they don't matter. Yeah, they'll be there, but you can make a few skew lists, like two. You just need 2 skew lists to fight that stupid thing. And you can make sure you pair it into there, and now you're good to go. Now this ridiculously powerful list that you can't beat otherwise is getting dummied by lists that are built to beat it, and it's great. It's a great feeling. Plus, you're playing with friends.
Well, that's all. Well, I mean, hopefully you're always playing.
Oh,
With friends
okay.
as
So
singles
hopefully you're always playing with friends. Yes.
But let's expand on the team aspect though, Dustin. So your team, the Stutter Scrub team, you've been together for how long now? Was this like created special for this event? Is this a thing that's going to be ongoing? Tell us about your team.
So funny enough, the Stutter Scrub team was created not too long ago. I think maybe 6 months ago ish.
Oh, well, you were at BPO, so
yes, we originally created it for BPO, the Beer and Pretzel Open over in Sudbury. So that was the first one that we created for. Now that was when a couple of the Team Canada members were trying to make a few teams. We didn't want to bring just 1 or 2 teams because they're just like not as fun to play for a lot of other people. When we just like, all right, we fight these guys and then
you wanted to give other people a chance to win.
We wanted to split it up because it's also something that we
That's
wanted.
not what he said, but
it's better practice. I'm not saying that, but it's better practice for us to actually kind of split us all up and kind of get some other people out of the team too. But my team was still stacked, which I was very happy with because I have myself. For those of you who don't know who was on the team, like it's myself, my co-host Jesse. We have Adam, who's my regular training partner on the streams every Wednesday night. That you'll see him on there all the time. Diogo, who has also been on the podcast several times, and Scary, because he's both been on the podcast and on stream with me. So it is official that it is a Stutter Scrub streams. Everybody has been on the podcast and or the game stream. So it's official. We are actually Stutter Scrub. But we're guys that we get along really well and we synergize well, and we don't like all of us play different armies. So it's kind of like we should just make a team. I started reaching out to, it was actually the way that it was originally created was kind of awkward. And since I'm telling the story, I as well. So originally I was going to be on another team, Tim's team, another member of Team Canada, because I was asking Jesse, okay, is this the year that we make a Stutter Scrub team? Do we do this? Like, can you go to BPO? Like, do we actually make this? He's like, I don't think so. Like, my wife got I think it was his son's birthday or something that weekend, and he was like, no, sorry, man, I can't go. It's all right, no problem. Then I'll join this team. Then, literally the next week, he messages me. He's like, hey, I can go. We're going to make the Stutter Scrub team. And he put together the whole team. He got Diogo, he got Ridvid, and he got Adam ready to go. He's like, all right, come over and play the Stutter Scrub. I was like, are you kidding me? not only do I have to leave Tim, like, because you actually have a really good team now, like, I can't not be part of the Stutter Scrub team. This is ridiculous. And now I have to tell Tim, sorry, man, I can't be part of your team. I feel so bad. I will make sure I get you a good player before I leave. I did get him Devin, so I felt better about it. Once I got him Devin, I was like, I'm okay now. This is fine. You have a good player to replace me. I still feel bad, but damn it, Jesse.
That feels right somehow, though.
I know, right?
How the team was formed. Yeah, I really love team tournaments, and the camaraderie and the team spirit is a big part of it, because it's fun winning for yourself, but somehow when you're playing as a team, like contributing to the team effort is really important. And the beautiful thing is you can lose your game and still contribute something by just scoring a few points or jumping on a bad matchup and taking it out to give all your teammates good matchups. So it's a way of playing 40K where even by losing, you can win in a way.
Exactly.
I don't know if I'm making sense, but that's kind of my favorite thing about it.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because the score is aggregate, right? So across the 5 people. So there were a number of rounds last weekend where the difference was 1 or 2 points between win or draw, or loss or draw, and that's literally one guy just pulling out a few extra objectives here and there or something like that, right? Like, so that is the dynamic of team. You don't even need to be like a great player to contribute to your team, right? Like, I mean, geez, I won a team tournament. I'm not a great player. So it's just about, you have to know what you have to do and try and achieve that goal. Your captain's like, okay, we need you to get like 2 points. And then you just try and get 2 points. And then even though you lost, you actually won, which is great.
And what I'm curious about, Darren, since you just jumped in here, is you were organizing the tournament. So you also organize singles events. And how are tournaments different? How is a singles event different from a team event, from the TO perspective?
So I guess CanHammer team is a little bit unusual, and it's not. I don't think it's unique in this way, but in that it is supposed to be WTC format. We're trying to give people as true a possible WTC format as we can, keeping in mind that it's not 8-man teams and you're not representing your country, but like that's kind of part of it. It was initially kind of, we're trying to give Team Canada some practice, but really it's just trying to give people a different kind of experience. Now, in the past, that was a really different experience because ITC format and WTC format was so different. Now, WTC is playing the same missions, just with slightly, different scoring and maybe different FAQs, but it's basically the same game. It's less of a big difference than it used to be when.
I remember a couple of years ago.
Transition now.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I remember playing against a team that just showed up and was very confused about the cards we were using.
Yeah, I believe that.
So in the old days, we still had like the Maelstrom cards and stuff like that when ITC had long dropped that, right? So going to
a couple of the teams clearly had not read the pack.
Yeah. There's some other differences, like, WC, they have a format, you write your lists in and stuff like that. But, that stuff's just kind of mechanical stuff. The game itself is now pretty much the same game.
Almost identical.
Yeah. But I think the biggest difference organizing it is the team aspect. So people got to come with a team, right? And they got to sign up as a team. They have to have a captain. The captain has to join our little chat group, and the captains actually do a ton of work in the backgrounds that maybe their team members don't know about, but they do almost as much work as me. I'm just trying to tell the captains what to do and corral the captains, but they're doing the actual work. And then the other aspect of the team event, I mean, that's the biggest difference, is the team. For singles, I'm just like, okay, here's the sign up. Everybody signs up, submit your list. That's it. Like, it's fairly straightforward. Here's the pack. Boom, 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 boom. That's it. Whereas for team tournaments, like, here are the teams, who's on the team, people jumping in and out of the teams. The rosters are constantly changing. Captains changing. Names are changing. Just trying to organize all those things, not to mention, like, the slightly different list submission process because of, list checking and stuff like that. So, which you generally don't do for the singles, right? It's like, here's the list submission date, upload it on BCP. That's it. It's fairly
Speaking of
straightforward.
that, we had a small wrench thrown in the works of this
Oh God.
kind of a team
A
tournament
small wrench, you call it. That's
when Games Workshop released a fairly significant balanced data slate 5 days after the list submission deadline. So, Darren, how was that from an organizer's point of view? How was dealing with the captain's chat that day, Darren? Tell us the inside scoop.
Okay,
I
so
can answer that for him, I bet.
so I will say first of all that almost every year. So I think I've been helping run the event for like 3 or 4 years now, and every year something happens inside that. Normally, it's like a 4-week list submission. So list submission is like 4 weeks before. So that gives us plenty of time to submit it, format it, check it, correct it. Everybody's is good to go. And usually we plan not having any book changes or stuff like that before. And in days past, that would work very well because nothing happened very often with
But it's
GW.
a different game these days.
But even from last year, just stuff happens, and then it's up to the democratic process of the captains voting on whether to allow something to happen. And generally, in my experience, if it's a decent enough change, of which most of the time these things are, the captains, most people would rather play with rules that are valid and up to date than rules that are no longer, valid on the day you play them. Most of the time.
Dustin, do you want to say something?
No, I'm just agreeing with it. I'm putting my hand up
okay.
and I agree with
Yeah.
this.
Sorry, I was going to call
I am
on you.
agreeing with everything Darren's saying.
That's the professor in
So-
me. I saw
Oh,
him
right,
raise
yeah,
his
right,
hand
you're a
and I
teacher.
called on you.
Sorry, I won't do that must be screwing you up. I won't do that.
So it's
Actually,
almost,
my brain
almost- it's almost always a unanimous vote to adopt these things. And so this year, we actually put the list submission deadline later than normal. So it wasn't 4 weeks out. It was like only like 2 weeks out. And we did that on purpose because we knew stuff might happen. And so we already went into it with a compressed schedule of list checking and correction. And then there was the rumor that the NID codex was going to come out that weekend. So we delayed it by another 24 hours because they come out on Saturday. And then they told us was like the Thursday or the Friday that week before the deadline that there was going to be a data slate next week.
Right. They were very, very vague about it.
Very
At some
vague.
point next week. And of course, this being DGW, next week meant the very last day that it could possibly be.
So then it's like, well, it's 2 weeks before. So we had to have a vote on whether we should wait for the data slate or just go without it. And, it's going to be a huge change, right? So, and the rumor was that they were going to get rid of Crusher and like big changes, right?
Mhm.
And lots of people were planning on bringing Crusher. So it's like, we have to wait. But then was it going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? And of course, it ended up being, like Thursday afternoon or something.
Yeah.
And then we're like, then we have to vote. Okay, well, here's the data slate. Do we adopt it? And then it's like, okay, well, we voted to adopt it. Most people voted to adopt it. Because then I was like, and I said in the captain's chat, I said, keep in mind, if you vote to adopt this, you are realizing that you need to spend your Easter long weekend and your team members rewriting your lists, and then submitting it on like Saturday night or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You gave us 48 hours. Very generous of you.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
because
good.
we gotta have time to put the lists
I
up
understand.
and check and correct, right? So I'm like, make sure you have this in mind when you vote. And I said, and you must vote representing your team, not just how you feel. You're representing your team. So if
I didn't even think of that. There must be some captains that might actually vote without asking their team
Yeah.
sometimes too.
because 4 out of 5 people on your team might not want to do this, but the captain
true.
wants to do it, and that's not really what
That's
the
true.
captain's supposed to be voting on. So anyway,
And it was a big change. It was a
Yeah.
big change to that slate.
yeah, and then we had to vote for Tyranid codex, yes or no, because what didn't come out that weekend, and then we had to vote on the mistake of the night obsec. Oh, we didn't actually end up voting on that. We just made a decision. But yeah, so it was a pretty hectic week, basically.
Now,
Well-
as it turned out, I think we played the most balanced weekend of Warhammer all year because we had old NIDs and a balanced data sheet.
It's true. I actually think I think a lot of us were saying that too when we were there. The meta that we played in felt really good, like really good. But that also helps because it was a team tournament, like I was saying earlier, like because you can have those good matchups against the the really strong list, but even the most broken, I'm using air quotes because we're using good radio here, but the most broken lists out there were still, you could deal with them. They were still, like, it'd still be oppressive to some lists, like you paired them wrong, but the right list of them, you're still going to pull points. And that's a big difference. If you say like you can get 10 points out of a dark Harlequin list, that's big. It's big.
Yeah.
From your team's perspective, Dustin, did the balanced data sheet send you all into disarray? Was your team chat as frantic as mine in those 48 hours?
It was frantic from Jesse because he was playing Stones.
Right.
There was a brief moment that he was going to switch over to Chaos Knights. There was some time he was just going to do World Eaters. There was time he was going to do Grey Knights. And after about 24 hours, he just said, "Screw it, I'm not changing my list at all." And we're like, you know what? Like we said at the time too, was like, I think Custodes are still fine. It's going to feel a lot weaker for you, sure, but I don't think it's going to make a big difference. And he crushed it. He absolutely did well.
Yep.
Yeah, he turns out he's secretly a genius because we were looking at that 9 bike list and thinking, why didn't he change it? Like that seems like a list he should change out of. But no, he did great, didn't he?
He did really well. Like really well.
Yeah, actually,
in
all
our
the
first round, Jesse like really surprised Nick. I think crushed him, didn't he?
Yeah, he did really well into that one.
Nick was a little shell shocked after that. He's like, 9 bikes. I thought that wasn't good anymore.
well, the guys who were playing on the more competitive teams who did take Custodes actually all did very well.
Yeah.
And I think it shows that there's still a lot of play in the book. It just may not be the straightforward 9 bikes, 3 dreads sort of stereotypical list that people have been playing. But it gives us a chance to look at other things.
Yeah, that exactly. That said too, like Jesse said at the event, like if he had a little bit more time to kind of like practice the list and try a couple of things out, he probably was going to drop at least one bike squad and maybe add another dread or something. But no, overall he was really happy with it and it performed well. So he's actually having a hard time going to Chaos Knights now after doing so well with Custodes.
Well, he told me these were his last games with Custodes ever.
He told me that too, and I don't think it's true. After how he performed, I don't think
he's got a taste now.
He has a taste now. He has a taste of victory. He's like, that it tastes good. Very, very, very sweet.
Yeah, I do think adopting the data slate was the right decision and made for a healthier meta. No one likes playing with old rules because you're like, I'm playing now, but this is already outdated, right? So I want to get ready for the next event. But the short turnaround was an issue for us anyway. I wish I had a little bit more time. I mean, we all wish we always have a bit more time. But my LDR list, which I think played really well, and I did well with it this weekend. I was happy with it. But I had no like actual games with it, right? Because we needed to write the list very quickly, and if I had to do it again, it'd be a little bit different. So there was an added kind of stressor from the player's perspective, having to figure out what they think in theory in this new meta that doesn't actually exist yet might work, which is exciting. Maybe that's a good thing because we go into a blind meta and it's not been quote unquote solved yet, and we get to experiment and do silly things like show up with a 7 Demolisher Cannon list that doesn't do nearly as well as you think it's going to do.
It didn't do.
What are you talking about, Francois?
My team overcorrected massively. We realize that now. We took a sharp left turn after the balanced data slate, and I feel maybe outsmarted ourselves a little bit. Doing our post-mortem, we decided maybe we should have done what Jesse did and just stuck with the Custodes instead of trying to go off the wall and bring 7 Demolisher Cannons.
I think, like, on paper, what you were thinking of with that list made sense because we were pairing into it. We were looking at it, it's like, oh, it's just guard, it's fine. Then we started looking at the list like, actually, maybe it's not. This is actually kind of scary to look at. Maybe it's not. But a lot of those lists kind of seem better on paper. If you don't get enough time to practice them, then they might seem better or, in some cases, worse than they actually are. Like, and that guard one, I think, is one that, on paper, it looks terrifying.
Right.
But if you go in, who do we put it? We got Scarry into that, like the Dark Eldar that are just running up there. So, I mean, we had a good pairing into it. But if the guard list gets the right pairing, it will just
Yeah, it's a
crush
bit
it.
too much of a skew. It turned out to
Yeah,
be a
it
little bit
is.
too much of a skew because people were very cognizant of needing to avoid it in
Yeah.
good matchups, and so it
Hmm.
was kind of hard to pair it well in practice,
Yeah.
which was an issue. But still, we got to show up with 7 Demolisher Cannon and an Avatar of Cain in my case, and have some very original armies.
Yeah, no, they were actually really cool armies. I like them too.
And if
You
not
had a
for
good
the
roster.
balanced data slate, I would have been there with a bunch of Void Weavers like everyone else, and that would have been boring.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would have
that
been
would
like
have been.
super boring, right? And then everybody there would know that they just lost to something that doesn't exist anymore, and everyone playing it
Yeah,
would be like, "I just beat somebody with something that doesn't exist anymore. This
Yeah,
sucks."
and having played that list a bunch, it's both boring to play with and against.
yeah, exactly.
But this has happened at previous CanHammer teams. So the 7 Flyrant list, for example, missed the
Oh yeah,
deadline, so everybody was bringing freaking 7 Flyrants, and that was just a play bad, like a bad experience for players who lost to it and players who played it. So what's happened before, where these last minute changes weren't adopted and people didn't have good play experiences with that.
I remember that CanHammer. I fought against 3 games with 7 Hive Tyrants that tournament. That was
Yeah, yeah, that sucks, and
that
that wasn't
sucked.
even legal, right? And you're like, oh, this sucks.
Mhm. But I beat them. But it
Nice.
still sucked. It was
Yeah, well,
still
that
a
can
pain.
happen in team events, right? We were saying earlier that it's great because you don't end up facing the same thing over and over again. But Caleb on my team played GSC 3 times this weekend.
That's true. I saw him in the second round when he was playing Chris, and I walked over. I was like, "GSC again." Eh? But he did well. He said he learned a lot from our game, and he
Uh-huh.
used what he learned, and he did. He
Well,
won. It was great.
because that's a big thing with GSC, right? They're rare
Yeah,
enough that people don't know their tricks. Like I
it's
don't know
true.
the GSC. I actually read the GSC codex the week before, just in case we paired, right? Because I
Hmm.
had drawn our names out of the hat, so I read the codex and I was like, I don't know what this does.
You
But
will soon, Francois. You will soon.
having the because you have a GSC army, I know, because having the experience of playing the match in practice, not just in your head, right,
Yes,
is so important. So
it's
Caleb
very different.
Caleb improved markedly, and maybe if Hugh had been the third GSC player instead of the first that he faced, he would have done better, right?
Well, he probably would have. Yeah, for sure.
So that was interesting. All right, I want to ask just some quick fire questions. So without thinking too much about it, Dustin, what was your favorite moment of the entire tournament?
My favorite moment of the
Right.
entire tournament.
It could be a funny moment, an exciting moment. What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Uh, Kind of both. When in my game against Alex McDougall, he was telling me the whole our whole pregame is like, oh man, like my first 2 games, my 10-man drill squad came in with a 3d6 charge, re-roll, failed both times. Like you know that because you said that you're gonna fail it in this game too, right? Like that's how this works. It's like no man, this is third time's a charm. It's gonna happen this time. Comes in, fails the charge. It's okay. I got to re-roll. Fails it again. Like I can't. You can't say I didn't warn you, man. you can't. You can't say that before a game.
I don't even want to know the odds of that, but that's Warhammer sometimes.
That's Warhammer sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes the best laid plans, and then the dice just say no. But those are funny moments. Mine is definitely, and I'm cheating because obviously I wrote the question, so I've had time to think about it. But mine is definitely doing desperate breakout on the Avatar of Cain. I was playing Tim in the last round, and he threw his racks forward as I knew he would, and he surrounded the Avatar in a sea of racks. And the Avatar of Cain, great at killing many things, not great at killing 36 racks that are wrapping him. So I go into my turn. I go, no problem. I need to kill these racks, and I can't shoot them with my Dire Avengers if the Avatar is in the way. Desperate breakout. And Tim looks up from the table. He looks at me and goes, "You're really gonna do that?" I mean, it's the right move, but he was a little surprised that I was going to do it.
Of
And
course.
and then, of course, the Avatar of Cain, because he's the Avatar of Cain, he lived, and I just shoved him 10 inches further down Tim's line. That was such an epic moment, rolling that dice, holding my breath a little to see if the Avatar was going to manage to desperate break out from the racks or actually die right then and there. That was a great moment.
Desperate, so desperate.
So
Darren,
desperate. Did you have a great moment, Darren?
I think I would have to say when people started to come in. So like I got there on the Saturday at whatever 7:30, like really early, and there was already like 2 guys waiting there to go in, which is very committed. But I think when everybody started to come in and seeing like the faces, like most people I haven't seen for at least 2 years, if not more, that was a cool moment. and so that was cool. Yeah, I
So
gotta
is
say,
it worth it
seeing
for you
everybody again.
seeing the happy faces of your Warhammer players?
Yeah, I mean, people ask me the number of times, like, why do you do this? Like, why do you do this? It's the hassle, and then there's COVID, and then there's the WC and the data slate. Like why do you do this? And I guess that's why I do it, because it's fun to see people having fun.
Well, all the happy faces or
Yeah,
fake happy
I
faces.
guess that might be the only reason that you could possibly want to organize tournaments. Like, it's not,
Well, of course.
it's pretty boring. You sit there most of the day, you don't do anything, and like, dude, you're not playing, and often you wish you were playing, and so
Hmm.
it's definitely not an exercise in having a lot of fun, but just socializing and watching other people enjoy themselves. I guess that's kind of why you would do it.
It's the
And I think
social aspect.
I'll speak for everyone there and thanking you very much for your hard work, because if you don't have TOs, you don't have tournaments, people.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I hope that everyone listening realizes that there's a lot of work that goes into
Yeah,
organizing a tournament, a lot of work.
a lot of it.
And it's not like they're doing it to make money, right? They're doing it
Nope.
for love
No,
of
of
the
course
game.
not.
And sometimes I feel like people are a little ungrateful, like when people complain about the price being a little too high, or complain about the terrain not being quite good enough. And you realize that if those people weren't donating their time, you wouldn't have an event to go to. So that's kind of important for the community to realize.
And to really put it in perspective here, to see how important CanHammer is, fun fact, CanHammer is the reason that I got into competitive 40K. That was the first big tournament. Like the first CanHammer I went to many, many moons ago was the reason I started getting into competitive 40K. So Darren, you can say you're welcome to all the people that are fans of Stutter Scrub, because it wouldn't exist without you. See? There you go.
That's actually really cool. That's a neat story, neat connection. I love that.
Well, I mean, because there traditionally haven't been a lot of Toronto side events, right?
Mhm.
There's more now, but and so when we used to run the CanHammer team tournament out in like Kitchener, or like, well,
Cambridge.
Cambridge area with John Green, that was like the big event around
Hmm.
that part. And actually,
It
we had
was.
no big events in Ottawa. Um, so it's still one of the biggest Canadian events. It's definitely,
Yep.
I suspect, it's definitely the biggest team event for sure. But
Yeah, and
Hands down.
easily bigger because it sold out in under a second and crashed the BCP.
Yeah, it
oh,
could have been
dude.
bigger. We just had to have
Oh
the limit,
man,
right?
it was just, that's another thing about this
And if
year's
not for COVID, maybe it would have been bigger.
this
But
year's
the
tournament. So
uncertainty,
many
Of
things.
course.
I feel we could easily sell like 200 tickets to that. There's
Oh, are you
demand.
kidding? In 24 hours.
Yeah,
Easy.
Well,
maybe more than that.
we had eight
Make it a super
teams.
major, the next CCBV, Darren.
We had eight teams on the wait list for CanHammer team, but
Right.
because of terrain restrictions, we couldn't take any more people. And also, like, I wasn't sure, like, if it was even gonna happen, actually, because the
Mhm.
sixth wave was kind of slowly
Of
peaking up.
course.
We started right before Omicron hit, and was like, is this actually gonna go? And so we didn't
We've
want to.
seen this movie before.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
didn't want to put like 32 teams worth of people, like, in uncertainty. So we kept it conservative. Last time was 28. Sorry, so last time was bigger, but also terrain, and as you know, all about that. But
Well, speaking as someone who spent a lot of hours assembling and painting that terrain, the part of it that was painted, I can tell you doing
yeah,
any more terrain would not have been possible because we were still gluing it together at the venue the Friday night.
yeah. So people don't know. I mean, for ninth, the terrain has really changed for the game,
Hmm.
and the tables we had before, while functional, was not really the best for ninth.
Yeah.
And so Chris and Jason got a completely new set of terrain, like 50 plus tables. And yeah, and so we wanted that to be at CanHammer team. We wanted every table to have good terrain. Even previous CanHammer teams, we can say that not all the tables were great, right? Like, you guys know that you played at previous tournaments. But this was like, boom, here's all the terrain. Here's a list of what all the terrain does. Here are all the rules. Go forth and conquer.
Having every single table the same really changes the dynamic of a tournament. When you say, Dustin?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It makes it so much easier to plan for, and just it takes away a lot of feel bad moments from the game itself.
Yeah,
When
you
you
don't end
know,
up on playing a bowling ball going
yeah,
second to
exactly.
cow.
When you know the terrain you're going into, what it is before you even make your list, you can't go there and say, "Oh, the terrain screwed me." It's like, nah, man, you screwed yourself at that point. Sorry. Like,
Nobody wants that Adepticon moment.
no, absolutely not.
But and then also now we've invested in the terrain. Now that means CCPB is going to have awesome terrain, and hopefully more of it, as you say. Maybe we can break the 200 person mark this year. But yeah, so that was a big part of the issues with organizing the tournament this year was the terrain, but it actually worked out perfectly.
Yeah, no, it was a fantastic event.
With a lot of effort.
Yeah,
a lot of effort.
A lot of effort.
A lot of patience.
A lot of driving back and forth to Chris's house.
Oh man, we could probably do a whole podcast on the terrain debacle, but anyway,
we won't, but we could. All right, Dustin, low point of the event. Is there a moment in one of your games where your heart sank?
Where my heart sank.
All of his games went perfectly according to plan.
They absolutely did not.
No, he's trying to think of the hundreds of examples, which one he's going to tell us about.
I'm trying to think of one of them because actually, okay. Most of my moments were in my game against Alex because that game is one of the best games I've had in a long time. Like
I can imagine your two armies going at it being a really interesting thing. I wish I could have watched it.
The two forces, the hive mind just crashing into each other. That was pure GSC, but you know what I mean there. Like because we've been like friendly rivals for a long time. We never actually played in person. We played on TTS a few times. So this is the first time we actually got to play in person. Super nice guy, absolute gentleman. He's a great sportsman. So much fun to play with, and it's just every single roll that we made was both our stomachs were dropping. Like when his drill squad failed, I guarantee you his stomach dropped. So then when I brought mine in, I had to do the opposite. Like, see, I never fail my charges, Alex. So here we go. And then I originally was failing it. Like, let me try that again. One CP, and then I make the charge. Okay, and then the stomach just kind of settles again. Like, all right, we're still in good shape here. That was a little scary. That was probably the biggest stomach sink moment I had when I had to say that confidently. I don't fail charges, and then I almost failed it.
The dice roll that will haunt me, that I will have nightmares about for years, is the very first dice roll of the tournament. So my team paired against your team, Dustin. Mm-hmm. And I was matched against Diogo playing Crusher.
Oh,
and we're doing our thing. We're deploying, and Diogo is deploying. It's this 18-inch mission, right? 18-inch no man's land. And he's sticking his entire army in a single ruin right on the 18-inch line. And I'm playing Craft World Eldar, and I have access to this nifty little thing called Eldritch Storm. And I'm watching him drop a unit, and then another unit, and then another unit. And then I look at his deployment and I'm like, his entire army, minus the Hive Guard at the back and one unit of warriors, is in Eldritch Storm range. If I drop an Eldritch Storm on him and I feed it twice, I'm probably going to do at least 30 mortal wounds to that army. All I need to do is go first. I did not go first, but I was watching the dice roll. And you know what? When the dice winks at you and it shows you a 6 and then it tips over and it's a 2?
Yep.
And it did that. And I mean, I clawed my way out of that game. I scored 8 points, and under the circumstances, going second to Crusher, I feel that's fine. Like, my army did what it was supposed to do. I couldn't quite kill him fast enough. I should have been a little bit more aggressive with the Avatar. Maybe I could have done a little bit better. But all in all, I'm not unhappy with the game. And he was a fantastic opponent. I'd never played Diogo before, but I thoroughly enjoyed our game. He was an absolute gentleman.
No, he's a great guy.
But that first dice roll will haunt me forever. I will never again have the opportunity to do this many mortal wounds with an Eldritch Storm. It'll never happen again.
I'll let you do it to me, Francois. How about that?
Were you just going to set it up on purpose to make me feel
set
better?
My whole army
Next time we play, you're just going to put your whole army in the middle and make sure I have a good Eldritch Storm target.
Yeah, there you go.
Just to give you that satisfaction.
There
at least
you go.
Once in life.
Since it's so traumatized you.
Actually, I kind of am, yeah. Was there a moment, Darren, during the tournament where you had a thought, oh, this is going wrong, or something weird happened?
So actually, what I was reflecting on at the end of the tournament was actually that all the usual stuff that goes wrong didn't go wrong this year. So examples, complaints about painting. No complaints this year about the painting, paint scores, paint rubrics. Mostly because we didn't have a paint rubric. Yeah, but almost always most of the complaints after the tournament are about people's paint scores or paint rubrics, and we didn't have any of that, which was Great.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great.
the
I remember a specific incident a couple of years ago.
mhm. um, rules disputes. We had like two, and they were very gentle and resolved by looking in a book.
Mhm.
We did not have crazy disputes, or one game got a little bit heated, but that was it. And so actually, it was the easiest event to judge because we literally didn't have to do anything.
Hmm.
And so that's always low points when you have to make judgments, especially when you know the people playing and it's
Of
getting a bit
course.
heated. Like it's always tough to make those calls as a TO. And the thing I really, really was dreading this weekend was sending people home for illness or mask compliance or showing up without their vaccination because we had a pretty strict COVID.
Hmm.
We were not trying to win an election, so we kept our restrictions high. And actually, I didn't have to do that, which was great. Everybody had triple vaxxed. 100% people were triple vaxxed, and the first day was a little bit loose by the end, but second day mask compliance was super good.
Oh,
And
I take it back. The low point of the weekend was Dustin's mask.
My mask
oh yeah,
was the high point of my weekend.
All right, for the
The
listeners who obviously have no idea what I'm talking about, Dustin showed up with a mask on which was printed a face with a mask on his chin that matched his face fairly well. So from a distance, it looked like Dustin was wearing a chin diaper mask, but in fact, there was a mask with that printed on it, and it was just close enough to the real thing that from the corner of your eye, your brain starts sending alarm
yeah,
signals, right? Because there's this uncanny valley
yeah. It
thing
was
going
weird.
on,
It was
like you think
super
there's an
weird.
alien walking towards you. And then when he talked, the mouth on the mask moved just a little bit. It was awful. I hated it.
It was the best $3 I've ever spent. Like the comments I got, like Billy when I walked out on the first day, he looked at me like concerned because the lips on that mask are very deadpan, and I'm never deadpan. I'm very expressive. If you know me, like I always have expressive faces. So when he looked at me, he's like, "Dustin, what's wrong? Did you have a bad day? Like, did something happen? Like, what are you talking about?" It's like, what's wrong? And he like started walking closer to me and closer to me. And the moment he got right at my face, he's like, "Oh, for God's sake!" And then just ran off.
I love that on the team picture you put on your Facebook, you had to add in the description that you were actually wearing a mask. Because in the picture, it looks like you're not.
I looked at it, I was like, whoa, I actually look like a huge douche right now. If you don't know, I'm wearing that mask.
Yeah, yeah,
Every time I turned around and saw you out of the corner of my eye, I kind of freaked out a little bit.
I had to take it off during games because it was uncomfortable for me and it was uncomfortable for my opponent. So it was just like didn't feel right. So I would always change to a real mask during the game.
yeah. That
Darren,
was
there's a small child that needs me, so just take over for a minute, okay?
Yeah.
yeah. So that was, and kudos to everybody who turned up. Obviously, people signed up knowing that these were going to be the restrictions, and even when they dropped, we decided not to. And I really appreciate people who came up and spoke to me during the tournament that they appreciated that we didn't loosen the restrictions. They felt
Of
safe.
course.
They felt
Yeah.
safe coming to the tournament, and that there was about 4 or 5 teams who told me they were going to pull out because they were worried we were going to lower the requirements.
Really?
So that was cool. So yeah,
Yeah, that was good. I'm happy that you didn't like stick by it. You like people knew what they were signing up for at that point, right?
yeah,
So like,
The comments that I heard was that people were glad that
yeah,
we were fairly
absolutely
strict about it.
felt safe.
No,
Right?
definitely.
That's
And
what
it's
you want to
important.
feel. You don't want to worry about that crap. You want to worry about my dice not giving me first turn when
Exactly.
everything's
That's the
clumped
important
up
thing.
for a nice Eldritch Storm here, or not rolling a 1 when my transport dies. There's only a Calamar from the transport. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
That
that's
sucks.
Oh, the other high point I forgot to mention, those beef skewers on the second day lunch.
That was amazing.
Those were
Those were
delicious.
so good. That was actually amazing lunch there. That was so good.
Like
having been
our
to,
lunches at EY are usually pretty good, like a little bit
I was going to
above
say
the
best tournament lunches probably in the world.
yeah, but those beef
Mhm.
skewers really like outdid themselves.
Yeah,
Those
that
were
was
really
amazing.
good. Yeah.
All right, so very successful tournament. Before we let you go, Dustin, since you're on and it's timely and you're expert enough in the area, I want to hear your quick thoughts about the Tyranid Codex.
My quick thoughts about it.
Quick
It's
because we don't
busted.
have 2 hours, so
It's busted, but it is so strong. The amount of mortal wounds output that, because right now I feel like with every release, the new dex that comes out is built to beat the one that was just released before it. And in this case, would be like Harlequin's Eldar, because we could build a massive mortal wound output. Like you have luck rolls with 4-up invuln, I don't care. I just kill you anyway. I ignore all of that. They have anti-psychic abilities in there. It is the amount of mortal wounds that the new Nid decks can put out with the durability and potentially obsec units that they have that they can spam is oppressive. It's actually scary. Will it be more oppressive than like pre-nerfed Harlequins? Hard to say. It depends on where the meta goes. It's a high bar to hit there. It's going to be different because they're going to be similar in the sense that they're going to be hard to kill because they have a lot of 4-up invulns with this time a high toughness instead of luck dice. So I feel like it won't be quite as bad to fight against and a little bit more fun to fight into. And it would be more fun to play too because the Nid Dex is so deep. Like, a lot of people don't realize how deep it is. Like, you're going to see a lot of sheets. Yeah, there's a lot of data sheets. Like, you're going to see a lot of people running Maleceptors, Tyrants. You're going to see so many Maleceptors. You're going to see Zoanthropes. You'll see, like I said, the Tyrants in there. So until more is figured out, you'll probably see mostly that, and it'll be a little bit of a pain to fight against.
Yeah.
But then it's a really good dex, and it'll be fun to play against for at least the first little while people are still figuring it out, I think.
Hopefully. I have 3 Molochs for some reason painted up.
So do I.
Molochs come good?
I mean, actually, you know what? Molochs are not bad. They're absolutely not bad right now.
I'm looking at my Tyranid shelf, and I just haven't had the time to dive deep into the Tyranid codex because I'm in grading hell this week, and I painted for CanHammer Team all last week. But I have so many Tyranid models ready to go, just on the shelf, painted, and I was looking at them. I'm like, soon, soon, I will take you out.
So when
I will actually be playing them tomorrow on stream, but not pure Tids. I'm actually bringing Forces of the Hive Mind because I can't live without my GSC. I need my GSC.
So when I first started playing a lot, like a few years ago, everybody was playing Nids. Like, you played Nids, Phil played Nids, this guy named Jeremy played Nids. Everybody was playing Nids. It was everywhere. 6 Hive Guard killing me, and I was running 18 bikes at the time. This was a few years ago, and man, it was a pain in the ass playing all these Nids, and now it's going to be like that again.
Different though, because without Hive Guard, it actually makes the Nid matchup more fun, I think.
Yeah.
Because you're not just sitting there getting shot by something you can't see. Now you're going to sit there and get mind bulleted by something you can't see. But at least you have to go in range of that.
Well, also, without the double move, you're also not losing the game turn 1. So you're going to get at least 1 turn to do your thing.
Exactly. And the Gene Stealers are not nearly as oppressive as they were.
Turn 2, I make no promises. But turn 1, you're going to get to play.
Turn 1, you get to play. There's no real massive alpha strike that will just dummy your whole army with Tyranids right now. They have a lot of good plays, though.
It does seem like maybe a bit much.
I mean, you could drop in a Maleceptor to do 27 mortal wounds on turn 1 if you want to.
Yeah.
It's a huge investment to do that, mind you, but it's possible.
I'm going to stick with my craft world for a little bit, and I'll tell you right now, I've switched my second craft world trait to the mortal wound, feel no pain one.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I feel like we got to go back to Emperor's Chosen here for a 4-up.
Yep, for sure. Well, with the rise of like Thousand Suns now too, and with Tyranids coming, absolutely, that's a good idea.
Yeah, otherwise I'm just tabled.
It's not even just a Maleceptor. Like, if you want to lean into it, bring enough Zoanthropes, and you can really spit out the mortals.
Yep. So they can do mortal wounds in every phase, except morale.
Oh,
that's great.
Well, that's
your morale phase, you'll be safe. Aside from they have leadership shenanigans, of course, but
and doing weird mortals in weird phases is such a powerful ability. It's why I love my Shroud Runners in my craft world, because you can do mortals in the enemy movement and charge phase. I played against a Gaskull this weekend. Poor Gaskull. Started turn 2 with 2 wounds left.
Yeah, exactly. It's those kind of things, because that's becoming more common. That a lot of models that can't be taking a certain amount of wounds in every phase. So being able to do those mortal wounds in any phase it makes them moot. Like, you got that, cool, he's still dead. He'll still be dead in 1 turn, I don't care.
It'll be interesting. I hope it won't be too bad, but I do think that we had the rare opportunity of playing in a fairly balanced meta with old Nids, post-slate. It was a really good weekend for that.
Yep, for sure. New Nids won't be as easy to play as a lot of people think. So I
Oh,
think
and
it'll.
the other thing is that might bring down the win rate anyway in the stats.
Yes.
Is there's a lot of people who are gonna dust up their old Nids that they've had laying around on the shelf forever because they like playing Nids. They were kind of
Phil.
hard to play, so they
Mhm.
put them aside. Like Phil, I am talking about Phil. And then the new codex comes out, and they just throw together whatever they have, and maybe it doesn't actually work as well as the internet tells you it should. But the best players will be very terrifying with those with
Yep.
that book.
I guarantee you that. Like Alex and I have been talking about lists, and both of
Yeah.
us are like, this is dumb.
Yep.
But you're like some people are just kind of like bringing the list for fun. Like they're still going to be good,
Mhm.
but they won't be like as oppressive as people are worried about.
All right. On that note, thank you very much for joining us, Dustin, for this CanHammer Team Tournament recap. We're about at the hour mark, and this is where I try to end things so that our listeners don't get too bored with us. If you're listening, thank you very much for the support. Follow us on all the social media, on Twitter, on Facebook. Just type CanHammer in there and find us. We have the Discord channel. If you're not on there, please join us. It's a great community, and we'll catch you very soon. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.